Hey, good evening, everybody. Um, Again, it's been a few more days. Today is day 18, telling stories about my father. My dad passed away 8 weeks ago today, and it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. And I've actually probably gone maybe 4 days without crying about it, but I've also probably gone about 4 days without really thinking about it too much, to be honest with you. But tomorrow, I'm going back home to see my mom. It's my 49th birthday next Thursday, and I originally had plans. To see a hockey game with my dad next Thursday, and now it's not going to happen. But anyways, I wanted to share one of my all-time favorite stories about my dad, and it's hard to, for some of the stories I've shared, it's hard to top some of them, but this one is my favorite one. Maybe it's not my favorite memory, but it's probably one of my favorite stories to tell. I shared it at his eulogy a little bit. I'll probably go into a little bit more detail here. But when I was growing up, this was the early 80s. So I was born in 76. So I was less than 10 years old. I'm sure I was probably 7 or 8 at the most. And there is a historic home in Minnesota called the Longfellow House or the Longfellow Mansion. And in the early 80s, this historic home was rented out by a charity. It might have been the March of Dimes, but some charity like rented it out around the Halloween season, and they made it into a haunted house. And I don't mean it wasn't a kid's haunted house, and I can't, if you don't know what I'm talking about and you've never been to one, then it's hard to explain. But this was also the 80s, when haunted houses and the actors or the people that worked the haunted houses could reach out and actually physically touch you, and they didn't have to worry about being sued. Nowadays you get sued for doing that, but back then it didn't matter. They would do that, and it was kind of no holds barred as far as what was allowed at a haunted house, so to speak. So if you're from Minnesota, if you're from the Minneapolis area and you ever went to the Longfellow House around Halloween, again, this would have been 82, 83, 84, somewhere around there. I'd love to hear from you if you went. But the one year that I have the most specific memories about was I grew up in Farmington, which is, an hour, especially back then, it was probably an hour from Minneapolis. But I met up with my cousin and my cousin's dad and my dad at their house in Minneapolis, and they were supposed to take us to something that was called the Casper the Friendly Ghost Haunted House. Totally kid friendly. I'm sure it was a wonderful place to take kids for Halloween. Not probably scary at all for the most part. But somehow we kids knew about this haunted house thing at the Longfellow Mansion or the Longfellow House. And we begged and begged and begged and begged and begged and begged to have our parents take us. Not our parents. My mom would not have taken us. To have our dads take us. Of course, this was a dad's thing, right? And so through enough convincing, they took us. Through enough begging and pleading, they took us. And we were all, it was me and my cousin Justin, one of his neighbors, Johnny, who we called Little Johnny. I don't remember if Tommy was there or who else might have been there, but it definitely was me and Justin and this little Johnny. And we went, and and it was so flippin' scary that it still is very much burned in my memory how scary it was. Because I just remember that at one point you'd go into this house. I mean, it was parts of the house that you were in were, I don't mean to overuse the word literally, but it was literally pitch black. Like you could not see your hand in front of your face. That's how dark it was. They would never do anything like that these days because it'd be too dangerous, I would imagine, from an insurance perspective and from a legal perspective. But it was really, really dark. And I remember standing behind, I was either behind my dad or behind my behind Danny, my cousin Justin's dad, and holding on to their pants because I was just a little kid because I couldn't see anything, and just holding on, just standing there waiting to move and holding on to their pants because I was so frightened because it was just, I was scared only because it was just dark and I was already scared. But then as you walk through the mansion, I remember there was one point, they used lots of strobe lights, and if you've never been somewhere with strobe lights make everyone's movement slow down. So it looks like people are in slow motion, but 1 minute a hand is like this far away from you, and the next moment it's there because of the strobe light effect, right? So you don't realize it. And I remember there was this one small little area where you walked up, and there was like a woman or whatever who was pretending to be chained to the wall, and there was a bloody chainsaw sitting on a table. And when you walked by, you thought it was just her and this chainsaw, and then out of nowhere, this door would swing open, and this crazy looking wolf man, like we're talking, again, I was a kid, so maybe this is my memories, and it wasn't accurate, but it was like, to me as a kid, it was like movie, realistic wolf man came out, but the strobe lights were going. So 1 minute he was far away, and then the next minute, split second, he was there in your face. And it was so terrifying. It was so, and of course, like, I don't know, it probably wasn't more than 10 minutes into the haunted house, and all of us were like, we're begging, get us out of here. But you can't get out. There's no way to get out. You just have to, you just have to push through. And I think poor Johnny peed his pants, and it was terrifying. And I also remember when you got out of the house, they had one of those big, huge. It was almost like a circus tent set up in like the backyard of this mansion or whatever. It wasn't really, but there was two openings, and I don't remember what was going on. I think there was probably a gambling or something. I don't remember what was going on, but you could go through. You went in there, probably could get hot toddies or God knows what you could get as a dad. You know, alcohol, beer, who knows what else. Maybe some hot chocolate or some hot cider. But so I remember going into the tent on one end, and then so you go into one end, and then you walk out of this other end of the tent. And I remember still very distinctly going into the tent. You think everything's fine. You've gotten out of the house. You've survived. You're alive. Thank God. You thought you were gonna die. You're alive. And then we walked out of this other exit, and I don't remember who this person, what they were dressed. It doesn't even matter what their dress is, but not everybody that walked out got scared by this person because they had to pick and choose their spots. But of course, they picked and choose when I came out of the tent, and he just jumped out and went rah or whatever he did. Oh my gosh! I just about pooped my pants as a little boy. It was so scary. But the craziest thing was, so we begged and we begged, and then we were terrified. We were terrified to go. And then what did we do the next year for Halloween? We begged again to go back. And what did the dads do? Did they say no? Did they say, no, you guys are too scared last year, we're not going to take you? Of course not. They took us again the next Halloween, and we got scared all over again. And the moms were very mad, needless to say. But by far one of my favorite memories of my dad. And I really miss him. So anyways, if you've lost a loved one, if you are grieving, you're not alone. There's lots of us out here. Hang in there, stay strong. I'm told it gets better. Until next time, peace.